Good morning, everybody.
Morning, Judge.
Good morning.
Okay, let's see. I need to probably, Miss Kirksey's probably super of the day.
Is Jason Zoll or Will Ratana?
They're both here.
Okay.
I'll bring them
They're,
both in.
yes, ma'am, they're on case.
We're here on a review hearing. We are conducting this through Zoom under a finding of good cause and agreement of the parties. We're live streaming and Miss Taylor's making our record. All right, so Mr. Clay has turned 18. And I've reviewed the report, so I've certainly got some questions about where we stand, but we'll go ahead and get an update. Mr. Zoll, I guess, or Mr. Tam, whoever wants to give us that.
Judge, do we need to do announcements first?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Daniel Trout for the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services. Jason Zoll is a permanency specialist today. We're present ready.
Stacy Zavala on behalf of Clay.
Melissa Lemos with CASA and with Dr. Roush as well. I think I might have cut out, sorry.
Yeah. And this is Dave Roush with CASA.
All right, then.
Well, Your Honor, he is doing very well. He's moved into the Skylar SIL. All reports are that he has had a positive transition, and both the foster mom, or former foster mom, and placement are working at trying to get him moving forward. He had an internship over the summer working for the Houston Food Bank. That has since ended, so they are seeking to get him another position. Skylar has TWC come out, and her locations are a work site for them. So they hold their classes and training at the location. She's also applied for their program where the residents will be able to have a job doing like data entry for like $10 an hour. But that's not meant to be a long-term. It's just meant to help create a resume, you might say, for them and help them boost that up. The former foster mom, Ms. Welling, her and her husband are looking at some HVAC classes and such for Clay. Clay does have some nerves, you might say, about that because he's not comfortable with the math. But if he can get past that part, I think he could do very well, especially if he was like the second person in the team, the one that doesn't have to necessarily talk to the client, but just does the work. He's also expressed interest in working at places like museums and such because he has such a big interest in mythology and history and such like that, maybe being a tour guide. The one concern that we have with Clay came up, matter of fact, yesterday. He took himself off his meds 6 weeks ago, but kept it secret from his former foster mom, placement, and such. And the worry is, will he continue to make rough decisions like that and keep them secret? Also, he's been having some spending issues, like spending all of his money on snacks and such for friends and everything there at the placement. So his former foster mom's kind of looking at how she can help or be the control for him on that kind of thing. Even, I don't know, partial guardianship, power of attorney, something like of that nature where she can help buffer his decisions and such. But overall, he's happy. He's comfortable. He's only ever had one issue with any of the other residents, and that's when he was trying to comfort that resident when they were upset, and the resident just wasn't having it. So overall, he's doing very well.
So it kind of looked to me like the big issues are, what do we do to keep him qualified for the SIL? And I see everybody nodding their head.
Yes.
So I mean, it sounds like they're looking and they're kind of on top of that and trying to make that happen. I mean, I read about the welding thing, which that did not surprise me. I was very concerned about that from the get-go because of the noise and the stimulation and talking talk about bright flashing light. You know, I was hopeful that that would work, but I was not surprised at all that that was, you know, that was a dead end. You know, does he have any other interests? Like, you know, does he like to cook? Would he have any interest in doing anything like, you know, in a restaurant or prepping or, you know, not necessarily waiting tables. I don't mean that, but maybe something back in the kitchen or, you know, I just don't know. I'm trying to, I don't know what
He's not
his strengths are, you know.
he's not expressed any interests of that nature, but that's also what we're hoping with the TWC classes and stuff, finding him or exposing him to different areas of work that he may show interest in.
Like a
His biggest-
library.
like a library. He would be very good at a library. And matter of fact, placement is contacting the museums and such. And I should suggest the libraries this week to try to see if there's, you know, jobs he can do there. Because like I said, he has a big interest in mythology and history and such like that. But a library would be really great for him.
Well, I mean, to some extent, some of that work is repetitive. It's predictable, quiet environment. So I don't know, toss it out to somebody. You know, and there might be some of the public libraries in the Houston area that, you know, might even have some programs for, you know, disabled adult to, you know, as far as some of the jobs that they do and things and that, you know, and I know what everybody said about Clay and he didn't qualify for a lot of these things, but I think everybody, I mean, you all, not necessarily me, but I think all of you that have worked with Clay, you know, for all these years and closely have a better idea about, honestly, about what his needs are than what his test scores really show. So,
Your Honor, this is Dave Roush. I know when he was in Dallas or first got to Dallas, there was some discussion about doing like a part-time type job at a library. I don't think that ever panned out because I'm not thinking that the placement had any idea what we were talking about. But that I also think that'd be a great idea. I don't know. They may just have like a 1 day type of thing where, you know, he goes there for a day to see, you know, how much contact with the general public does he have reshelving books or whatever. And again, it is repetitive and there is a specific way to do it. This is, of course, with the call numbers and things. I remember the library idea came up a number of years ago when he asked, what does my wife do? And interestingly enough, she works in a library. She's a librarian. So he said, hey, that'd be kind of interesting to do. Now, of course, it takes a lot of training and that kind of thing to actually be a librarian, but we call them shelf elves. To be a shelf elf doesn't take a whole lot of training. We have undergraduate students who do it all the time. So I think I don't know that we have to the library though, how the library organized and what sort of background checks he has to do and that kind of thing. I think his youthful indiscretions probably won't show up on background checks anymore, but that might be more of a attorney question than it is for me. But yeah, I'd be willing to give him a try with the library. I might even be willing to check with some of the libraries down there to see what sort of, like, I'm sure Harris County has a library system, or how good it is a good question, but
I imagine it's pretty extensive and, you know, some of the main libraries, I mean, you know, anymore, my gosh, I mean, I don't know whether he's good at computers or game stuff. And I mean, you know, they have all of that stuff now. I mean, it's not just books anymore. Yep. So, I don't know. Well,
and Your Honor, I do have a suggestion we did put on our report. To maybe if the librarian doesn't, like, the working at the library doesn't work, maybe considering an aptitude, like a career counseling or a career test. I know at WT they call it career counseling, but there's certain tests and different things he can take that are very easy. It's just asking about your interests. And that way we can maybe see a couple other options for him too, especially for the long term.
Yeah, I mean, back in my days, we called them aptitude tests, and it was, I mean, some of you that are more my age may remember, you know, you had to like mentally fold the boxes, and you know, and it's interesting about those because, you know, they often, I mean, it's unlike most tests that kids have to take in school, it's not something they prepare for. It's not, it's just something they go in and they do, and they may not even realize kind of what that particular exercise is really testing them on, but it might be worth, if we can do something like that, we might be able to identify areas where, Clay's got some strengths that maybe we don't even know about. So, yeah, I think it's a great idea.
And also, Judge, I know Jason mentioned about Clay's spending habits, and everything like that, and determining guardianship or something. I do want to, again, I know I mentioned in the past that that agreement that isn't guardianship, that supported decision-making agreement where the Willings could still help manage his money. And he can still make those choices, but they would help him. They'll be able to help him a little more with that. I know on I don't know what website, the Texas State Law Library is what I'm looking at, does give out like samples and different things like that, but I think it could be worth a shot to explore.
Yeah, and I've talked with him about that in the past, and he seemed interested, so I can talk with both him and the Wellings about that, and I've got the forms, so I can go through with them and see if that's something that he is still interested in. I cross my fingers, and I think he would be.
Okay.
And Your Honor, while we were talking, I was looking it up. The Houston library system has several programs where they adapt for clients with disabilities. So given that, they probably likely have some for their employees as well.
It would shock me if they didn't. So, I just can't imagine that's not a fairly extensive system. Serving a metropolitan area that's as large as that is. So,
Your Honor, this is Will Ratton. I'm the supervisor on the case. Where he's at, they have extensive relationships with Workforce Solution and Texas Workforce Commission, as Mr. Zoll was saying. They have specially tailored programs for training and helping persons with mental health issues, cognitive disabilities, and even especially link up with these people who have had an IEP so that they can meet those services, provide protections while they're training them so they're not fired immediately. And we will keep working in that direction and make sure all the different parties are aware of the developments, and hopefully they will have good contact with his placement. And I think there's been some difficulties reaching Clay, and not just the parties, but sometimes the LPS worker who's trying to see him. But as far as the DDS for the department goes, she said he didn't qualify for an IDD. His IQ is way too high for that. So at least a formal legal guardian, as y'all are all attorneys and I'm not, it doesn't look like, unless he signed away some level, that there could be a guardianship. But we were already planning in our independence plan, a kind of an extension of permanency planning for him, that we would definitely be looking at the Wellings performing that kind of a function. I believe HHSC over in their guardianship program, when this sort of thing comes up, or the young adult is allowed to just refuse that because they don't want legal guardianship, then we try to develop what they call a shadow guardian, whether they are actually able to get some kind of legal involvement, or they just perform that function so we don't turn this young adult out into the world alone. I just want to make sure everyone has a little piece on that, and we are listening to everyone's input. Thank you.
I would love to see if outside of the hearing structure, if we could just set some sort of regular team meeting. He has a great team. I mean, everybody on this screen is pulling for him, and everybody's working really hard. So maybe we could set something, because this is my fear with Clay, is that especially if he makes decisions like stopping his medication, I worry every time we talk that this is the last time we're going to have him in care. I mean, I hope, it sounds like he's in a great place. I just hope he continues to recognize that. So I would love for us to be able to set up some regular meetings for the whole team. And again, it doesn't have to be in the structure of the court hearing. But just with the thought of, every time we talk to him, maybe the last chance we get. But I mean, it sounds like this placement's gonna be a good fit, and I'm really hopeful for that. And, but I'm betting we can do that. Set some regular meetings.
Well, I'm encouraged that they seem to have a lot of resources. You know, they're tapped into, it sounds like good resources. So, yeah, I'm trying to remember if it was in Clay's case or if it was another kiddo that had aged out. I cannot say the name of it, but there is an agreement that he could sign with the Wellings. I mean, and it's essentially sort of like, okay, I'm going to let you sort of manage my finances or certain aspects. And honestly, I'm drawing a blank at the name of that, but there is such a document.
I am as well, and I've got a copy of that document. I just don't have it right in front of me.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go over that with both of them and see if that is something that he would willingly sign.
Yeah, because I agree. I think it's questionable whether they could get a full-blown guardianship over him, based on, the testing and stuff. I mean, absent Clay's complete agreement, and, he could revoke it. And the other document I'm talking about, I mean, he can certainly revoke it at some point in time. But, the experience with that is that the individual subject of that document gets comfortable with it, and gets sort of comfortable to having, okay, this is my allowance. And if I need something extra, I just go, I call Ms. Welling and talk to her about it. And, she doesn't unreasonably withhold, okay, you can have a few extra $100 here and there to do this or that. And, they get comfortable with it.
If Your Honor, if you're looking for a time frame, we talked about this in, I think, last fall through to January or so. And again, I know there was a term for it, but I can't remember.
Yeah.
I mean, one thought that we had was to make the Wellings like I don't want to say co-signer, but like a joint bank account type of thing where it was, Clay Collins and then Jen Welling, and maybe even Jen Welling, not just an or. That we had talked about that too. I don't know if there was something related to banks that had a problem with that. But I have to go back and look at my notes. But it was last fall up until January. We discussed that at pretty much at length, actually.
Yeah. Okay.
And
So
then
maybe in Clay's case, but
I think it kind of fell by the wayside because things seemed to be going okay in terms of that. There didn't seem to be a need for it. So we didn't actually go through, but I think now is the time for me to sit down with them and go through that with them.
Really, the behaviors he's demonstrating are so common to our young adults, regardless of whether they have problems or not. I know in the long term, what you're saying is absolutely right. Right now, he's just practicing normalcy that he hasn't really had the opportunity of. And it does sort of drive us crazy at times with various clients, but I think mostly his appetite's going to teach him some, because that stipend is a large part of how he eats. So that will be important. They do have a pantry, and they'll have a pantry angel for him, just making sure he does not starve. But at the same time, if he's just blowing the money and everything, he'll slowly start to learn somewhat, even though clearly what you're saying is obviously a long-term concern. Thank you.
And Judge, I think the term we were looking for was the supported decision-making agreement.
Yeah.
And it allows him, he'll make the decisions, but he has a supporter role that will be able to help gather the information and help him weigh the options. I think that's the agreement that we had talked about.
yeah, I think it is.
And I agree. Will definitely put it well. The placement has connections with several food banks and such, but they're not Takis. They're not snacks. They're not the, really fun stuff. So, yeah, Clay's gonna, want some of that and then not have money. But both the placement and the Wellings have described him and very well as he's very institutionalized as far as initiating decisions and initiating plans. He has difficulty with. So the supportive person that could help him with and be able to talk to doctors' offices and have that authority to help make him appointments and such would be very helpful to him.
Yeah. I think it's time we talk to him about it. Well, even if he keeps his SIL placement, I mean, I think this is something that Clay would really benefit from on a long-term basis. And I think, he has such a good rapport with the Wellings. They're the obvious ones. I think he trusts them. I think he listens to them. I think, I think they would fulfill that role better than anyone else. I mean, I think he'd be more accepting of that. So. Okay, well, we'll take a look at all that and then, do you all want to, let's see. Do you want to keep this on a 90-day track for a while? Instead of every 6 months?
I wouldn't mind that. I mean, I think we can address most of these things outside of the court, but just having that court date just helps keep him on the forefront,
Okay. All right, so let's see, Miss Katie had us scheduled for February 13th, but let's see. Take a look at something then towards the end of November, early part of December.
Looks like she put in 11/12.
I'm looking to pull 11, 12. That sounds good to me. Does that work for everybody?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, ma'am.
Would we also keep the February 13th as well?
Yeah, we can go ahead and just announce that would be the next one. So let's get back together then November 12th of 24 and then February 13th of 25. Kind of see how things are going. I mean, I just feel better about checking in on him in that shorter period of time. So we'll continue the department as permanent managing conservator, continues current placement, and just thanks to everybody for all that you're doing for Clay. I really appreciate it. All right, y'all have a wonderful rest of your day and week. Everybody stay cool.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Go ahead and take announcements.
Daniel Trout for the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services. Jason Zoll is my worker today. We are present ready, Your Honor.
Sorry, I can't get it to unmute. Stacy Zavala on behalf of Clay.
Dave
Melissa
Roush.
Limas,
I'll let Melissa go.
Melissa Limas with CASA, along with Dr. Ralph.
All right then. I've reviewed our report, of course, and sounds like we're doing okay. So I'll get an update.
Well, Your Honor, he's doing much better now that he's back on his meds. He's had several job interviews, hasn't got a position yet. He's still working with TWC. They're trying to get him into more advantageous, I guess you might say, positions for him, things that meet with his skills and needs. And so that's a special program that they're working on. And they have, Skylar actually has several kids that are in that kind of need bracket. So hopefully that will pan out to a job soon. He still has no interest in college or trade school or anything like that. So right now, a job is the biggest focus that we have for finding him a future.
Okay. Well, I would agree that needs to be where our focus is so we can keep him in the SIL. All right. Anybody have anything to add to that, Ms. Zavala?
Just to tell on myself a little bit. I have talked with Clay and he sounded really good. I was glad to hear him sounding good after that medication, but I needed to confirm with him again because I was delayed in getting out the paperwork that we talked about, the supported decision-making agreement. So I just wanted to make sure he was still on board with that. He absolutely is. The other thing that I had put in that agreement was just kind of one sentence about also allowing, because it's the Wellings who are going to be doing that agreement with him, allowing the Wellings to be able to talk with St. Francis and DFPS specifically about Clay's case. And he is on board with that. I mean, he wants them involved in any way possible. So I went last night to email that document and I cannot find it. So I may have to redo it. I've got it. It may be on my desktop instead of my laptop, but he's on board. I've got both of the Wellings email addresses. I'm sending it to both of them so that we can all coordinate on a date, hopefully in the next few days to get that done. But I have not sent Clay yet that email that I told him I was going to be sending him, but it is coming, even if I have to redo the whole thing.
Okay, well, I bet you find it. Okay, good. Would that include them in the loop on medical things?
It does have medical language in there. I think it may be up to the doctors, the facility, as to whether they honor that agreement. I've never had any experience with it before, so I don't know how it works in practice. The hope is yes.
Well, my thinking is just it might keep us from doing another round of this. I'm 18, I'm not gonna take my meds, kind of deal. If the Wellings are supportive of him staying on the meds and are in the loop of that discussion, maybe it might prevent another, lapse in his medication. I don't know. So I guess we'll see how they all treat it.
Well, Your Honor, his foster mom had originally supported him going off meds, but she did quickly see the error. I could talk to Clay and see about adding her at least as a backup consenter or such. I'm not sure how the agreement works in the detail that Ms. Zavala is putting in, so I don't know if they could override his decision or if they could just have input on his decision.
Yeah, I'm not sure they could override his decision. I mean, because he's not been declared incompetent. So, but it would just be where they'd have access to that information so that they could have an informed conversation with Clay. I think that's the issue more than anything.
Yeah,
Oh,
and in fact, it's revocable at any time.
Yeah.
That agreement. So there's no way to override Clay. I mean, if he changes his mind or he wants something, he wins in that decision.
But I don't see that happening anytime soon. I think he values them too much to want to just up and say, well, I'm going to cut them out of the picture.
Absolutely. And he was telling me last night that he was unclear as to whether it was a credit card or a debit card, but that the Wellings are helping him with, and that she gave him the card and then she gets the bills. And so, I mean, without question, he's like, yeah, I want them involved in everything. So.
Okay. All
I
right.
would agree with that, Your Honor. He's very unsure of his own decisions.
Well, and good that he recognizes that. That's okay.
And I think it's just a godsend that the Wellings are there for him.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, then, Mr. Roush, Dr. Roush, excuse me.
Oh, no problem. Really, I guess I'm in agreement with everything that everybody said. They took all my thunder. But the one thing I think maybe we should try to do is, I think it's Clay who doesn't feel comfortable doing a school type of thing, and maybe we should make him feel a little more comfortable with maybe just a class or something, at least something to fill his free time. That I always get a little worried with Clay and idle hands, because I believe that caused some problems in the past. And so, and now that he's over 18, those problems might be a little bit larger than they were in the past. How's that for innuendo and and very obfuscated? But it's just one of those where I think he probably actually would like a class better than he thinks he will. But I also don't know exactly how close would it have to be, like an online class, or can he make it to I don't know where there's a Houston Community College Center or anything nearby. Where he is. I'm not familiar with that neighborhood.
I'm thinking, what if it was if it was a class that was tailored towards just life skills? I mean, like a budgeting class, or how to keep a checkbook, or I don't know, something that might be geared towards helping him in independent living.
And Your Honor, just to add a little bit to Dr. Roush, I think our biggest concern just is that qualifying factor for SIL, that he needs to be in school or he needs to be working or something. And this has been somewhat of a long struggle to get him employed somewhere. And that's our biggest concern. But we did get out to see him. Jara and Tina went out to Houston and visited all our kiddos and visited with Clay. And he's doing very well on his placement. They seem to all be getting along very well there. There's about, I believe, 6 other boys in the home. And he seems to really enjoy that placement so far.
Okay.
He
Well,
told me one of the other boys was making pumpkin spice bread last night, and that he doesn't do any of the cooking, but he does do the grocery shopping.
That's what he told us as well. Yeah, he's not one of the cooks, but there is one roommate that cooks for all of them all the time.
well,
Yeah,
that's great.
he's more than willing to go get it if someone else will cook it. But he did also change roommates not too long ago, and that really did help.
Okay. Well, I don't know. I mean, I agree. I mean, if we could, fill some of his time with something that is beneficial, and I know he's resistant to the idea of school, but maybe we can call this something other than just, nah, this isn't school like you think of school, Clay. I mean, this is this is something that you need to learn, about just to help you live on your own. I'm confident there's probably a number of community colleges in that area. Mr. Zoll, I don't know if you can take a look and see if you kind of come up with anything. I don't want to I'm not just saying let's put him in something that's busy work. I mean, I think let's put him in something where he might really gain from it.
Your Honor,
Absolutely.
he should be getting some of this basic life skills training that you're wanting through Texas Workforce Commissions directly, including, specific job related functions, going to job fairs, but also just the budgeting end of things, taking job interviews and doing better, how to dress for those. We just need to follow up and make sure that those are actually being done. But we definitely support everything that everyone's saying here, and that he's not just not doing anything, other than maybe playing video games. Pardon me for interrupting. Thank you.
And I can look into the community college as on top of that. I mean, I don't know if home ec is still a thing, but that type of class, as far as life skills, or a basic cooking class, or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I know that most community colleges have, what they, refer to as their, continuing education type classes that are geared for people that aren't seeking a degree. It's just like if I decided I wanted to go take a language class or something like that, you don't even have to get a grade in it. It's just for your own enrichment, so to speak. And like I know Emerald College has all kinds of things that, are like what we're talking about. So yeah, he might find that sort of interesting or fun, or I mean, he could look through maybe, like I know Emerald College puts out their catalog of curriculum, and maybe he could just sort of look through that for this upcoming semester and see, find something that maybe looks interesting to him. So I'm all for it. Right now, the TWC is how we're keeping him qualified for SIL, right?
That is correct, Your Honor, because he's going through training programs and also specific programs for his mental acuity and such like that. So that's keeping him qualified, but it won't last forever.
Right. I get you. Well, the other thing is a lot of the big box stores and things put on seasonal help this time of year for the holidays. So that's something for us to look at. I mean, and sometimes those seasonal jobs turn into, a part-time job. So we might be able to, find him something that would start out as a seasonal job and might lead to something else.
Yes, Your Honor. I'll get try to get a list from placement of all the interviews he's had recently, because I don't see why like a night stocking job at Walmart wouldn't be perfectly up his alley. He wouldn't have to deal with many people, and he doesn't have to interact. He just kind of does his own thing and listen to music or whatever while he's doing that.
Yep. Hobby Lobby sells lots of boxes of stuff at Christmas time. So no, I mean, it just is something that happens at this time of year, and I know that some kids end up with a part-time job, because they've liked what they've done and they've done well at it, and then they just keep them on. So anyway, all right. Well, I appreciate everybody's continued focus on Clay and trying to keep him in a good situation. And I'm glad he likes where he's at. That's great. That's half the battle. So we can just get this other half figured out, then maybe we're in tall cotton. Okay, folks, then I will continue the department, or excuse me, we're into extended jurisdiction. I'm sorry. We will continue to extend the jurisdiction over Clay at his request. And I'll see everybody back on February 13th of 2025. That's on a 9 o'clock docket. See how things are going.
Thank you, Judge.
All right. Appreciate y'all. Have a good rest of your day.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Your Honor. You have a great day.
Okay. Y'all too.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Melissa,
All right.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
I got your message about the other case.
Mhm.
And I may have added to that situation unintentionally. So I will reach out to her. I had thought when I talked with her on Monday that meeting was going to be happening that day. And so that information may have triggered what we saw. So I will call.
You're fine. It sounds like I was thankfully able to, in between visits, calm her down, get mom taken care of too, for the most part, I think. And I think that meeting is going to be real beneficial to kind of clear some things up for
Yeah.
everybody.
So thank you for that info.
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Stacey. I appreciate you. Y'all have a good day.
Y'all quit talking in riddles. It's not polite to talk in riddles.
Secrets don't make friends, right, Judge?
That's right.
Y'all have a wonderful day.
You guys too. Thank you. Oh, okay.
Is Ethan Woods in?
No. No, and I don't get to see Ethan very often, so.
I apologize, Your Honor. I just texted him to see where he's at. We've been sending emails out today. If need be, I can try to give you the high points of Mary Jane's case.
And I've read his report, but we'll see if he gets logged in. If we hear from him here.
And truth be told, the only reason I kept this one on the docket was just an overarching issue that all of a sudden I'm seeing in lots of cases. Really not necessarily just Mary Jane specific.
Okay. Okay, well, we'll go ahead and get started, not to throw Mr. Rattan under the bus, but I'll watch for Ethan, and if he comes in, I'll let him in. We're here for a review hearing. We're conducting this through Zoom under a finding of good cause and agreement of the parties. We are live streaming and Ms. Taylor's making our record. All right, we'll take announcements.
Daniel Trout for the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services. Will attend, supervisor will be standing in today. We're present, ready, Your Honor.
Stacey Zabella on behalf of Mary Jane.
Okay, so I guess Mr. Rattan, go ahead and tell us what you know. Like I said, I did review Ethan's report, so.
She's doing well, is our understanding. We did have an HHSC guardianship hearing set in February, so that we could have been done already, except for the caregiver said that she wanted to be the guardian and has hired an attorney, and we're trying to work through her to start more direct contact with her attorney to find out what's going on and when we might be in court. So it'll be less restrictive than the state becoming the guardian, and, with someone who already knows her and with whom she's bonded.
Well, no offense to the state of Texas, since they're my employer as well, but I sure would be in favor of that. I mean,
Yes,
these kinds of things, it's just like the attorney general and some of the child support. It's just like it's a black hole. And
she already has everything she needs. I believe they have all the paperwork. HHSC, as I understand, still has their cases and stages open, but they won't hesitate to start dumping things, and hopefully everything will go through, or we will have to seek a bunch of certified copies of court documents all over again, but she's had her Social Security for a while. That's a primary issue with going forward with these guardianship plans. And so we should be coming to an end soon, but there has been a significant amount of time. And so we're trying to get in touch directly with our attorney, see what needs to be done, what we can do to help and get this on the road.
Okay. All right. Well, that sounds like a good plan to me.
Thank you.
If I'm just not seeing the downside, then somebody can share that with me, but that's to me mostly is upside. So Ms. Zavala, are you going to rain on the parade or?
No, not one bit. I think it's a perfect situation. And I think Mary Jane has a great team. So Miss Jupiter was a little unsure who the new caseworker is because that has switched very recently. But the only issue that I see at all, and I do agree, guardianship with Miss Jupiter is, I believe, the way to go. I've got a number of cases recently where it has been very, very, very slow to get birth certificates. And so Mary Jane needs a new one because of the name change. And I'm hearing that the process has changed between St. Francis and DFPS, and now that has to go through DFPS. And it's taking I can name 4 or 5 cases off the top of my head that just what feels to me like crazy long delays. So that is the only reason I kept this case on the docket, and I'm going to have to set a hearing in another case. So I really just want to figure out who is it at DFPS that these requests have to go to? What can we do to help streamline that process? Because it's impacting ICPCs that we've got to get those documents first. It's affecting all kinds of things. And Mary Jane is just one little piece of that. So I don't know who has the answers to that, but I'd love to know.
I would too. I agree. I mean, it seems like we have this issue come up. It takes forever.
Yes, Your Honor, I totally agree. And the problem is that since she's a young adult, usually the department won't request these. We have to do it independently. She has to be involved, and we have to have all the other documentation, usually some kind of school record, Social Security cards, everything to prove who she is, plus the orders and everything for the name change. I'm hoping the birth records were changed with that, because we're seeing a lot of them, especially in the southern part of this region, where they're never sent to vital statistics. So the Social Security card hasn't been changed, nothing's been changed. And I didn't realize where we were in this situation. That caregiver has not shared that I know of. And so I'll have to follow up. And we will have to check those records and see what we can pull. It'll probably cost us $10 to just go check what the record is saying, unless one of the foster care eligibility specialists can pull the birth verification and just tell us what name it's in. They usually won't when they're adults. So that's why it takes even longer when they get to us, and many are without those records. Because they're adults, they won't let us act on their behalf, whether we're talking about birth records, Social Security, DMV. And so when they're here locally, we just pick them up and help them obtain all the necessary documentation and then take them to those appointments. I usually just pay for the birth certificate, starting with the records check and then the birth certificate, and then just go with it. But when they're out of region, it becomes a little bit more problematic, but we have to have that caregiver in a situation like with Mary Jane cooperate.
So she was still a minor when we changed her name.
And that's good. But I can check with the department, but they probably will not help us get the birth certificate. Now, if it were requested before, I will have to go back and look. Then we need to find out where it is.
Well, yeah, I guess my question is when I sign an order granting a name change on a minor child, does anybody, then prepare that form that goes to the Bureau of Vital Statistics and get a certified copy of the court order and send that off to the BVS? I mean,
I think that's where the problem may lay, in most circumstances, who's supposed to do that and what. And I don't think the permanency teams necessarily have been picking up and doing that since they don't even really know how. And the department doesn't. They would just pick up on it as a birth certificate request only.
And I can tell you, I haven't been doing it. I can switch it to where that falls under me. And it was probably just a bad assumption on my part. I assumed I forwarded them the order and they got the documents the same way previously. So if I need to change how I do that, I'll be happy to do that going forward.
Well, I'm just trying to remember I'm okay. It's been a minute since I was in private practice, but I mean, when we did a name change, we would get certified copy of the court order. We'd fill out the form for the BVS. We'd send it off to him with a $55 fee, or I don't remember what it was, to get the birth record amended, get I guess it was a certified copy of the new birth certificate. And of course, if it's a Texas birth, yeah, I mean, when you're not amending the record, I mean, you can always just go over to City Hall and get a copy of the Texas birth record. But now I understand what you're saying now that she's an adult. If that was not done when she was still a minor, then I understand that it might require her agreement, but I don't know, because it was all done before she was an adult. I mean, the court order is going to be dated prior to her turning 18. I don't know that I guess I'm not sure that it does require her involvement to get that amended if it wasn't, because it was ordered before she turned 18.
I think if someone will send off the necessary documents to vital statistics, then we could at least ask the department. That part she wouldn't play a part in, and I apologize if I insinuated that. It's the after the fact. Then we could at least ask the department, since it was done while she was a minor, if they would go ahead and request it. Otherwise, we'll have to go through the general process of making sure we have all the correct documents, to identify who she is. They're listed online, and it's something we do fairly regularly. It'll take some time, but it's not the end of the world. And if I'd have been aware that we needed to work on this, we could, if it was already done with vital statistics, we would already have a new birth certificate.
So let's just assume that we can get somebody to fire off a certified copy of the court order and the form to the BVS and get the birth record amended. Now, I think at that point, then that will have to be taken to Social Security office somewhere to get her Social Security card, get her all of that changed with Social Security. I agree that I think at that point, it would be appropriate for placement, and or with Mary Jane, to go to the Social Security office and present that. But again, that's something that happened when she was a minor, and I don't know that I just don't know that that's going to require her involvement, other than physically going and doing it, taking that and presenting it to Social Security. And there may be a way to upload some of that stuff online nowadays. I don't even know, but I think we should be able to at least get if it hasn't been done, then I think we should at least be able to get it sent through the BVS and get that part done. So that doesn't answer Ms. Vall's question very well. So I think the only thing I know to suggest, Stacy, is when we know we've got a situation like that, when they're still a minor and we do a name change or something like that, then we need to be bird dogging who is going to do it.
Okay, and that makes perfect sense. And it should be, I think, on me to make sure that gets done. So I will make sure going forward. And I guess, Mary Jane's situation is a little bit different from a bunch of the other cases I was just referencing. So maybe we just need to set hearings in those cases because there are some different steps for Mary Jane, but just the standard, get a regular birth certificate for somebody whose name has not changed, for someone who is still a minor. We are just seeing these huge, crazy timelines and roadblocks on that. So Mary Jane's may not have been the appropriate case to bring up as that issue. But I really would like to get to the bottom of what is the actual procedure if we just need a straight birth certificate from somebody. Who needs to request it? Who does it go through? And is there anything I can do to help speed that up?
Ms. Kirksey, do you have any idea about that?
Yes, ma'am, it is, and I completely agree with Ms. Zavala. It is, it has been really, really difficult to get a hold of those. Birth certificates, even social security cards, we're having to go through Anthony Badkey now, through a lot of this stuff. The social security cards too, we get pushback from DFPS to even be able to apply to get those. They don't want us to request them unless they're at least 15 years old. If we're doing social security cards, we have to get certified copies of the school records, certified copies of the medical records, and go in and get certified copies of the court orders. And honestly, it feels like every time we go in to do there, something else has changed. So I can definitely set up some kind of meeting that we can sit down and talk with our director and figure out, but it has been very, very delayed in trying to get all of the things and jump through all of the hoops that we're having to go through now.
Yeah, that process is already beginning, and my team is supposed to start rolling out more information and coming to team meetings throughout permanency soon. I'm not sure exactly why we would be appointed to do that, but we're getting the adults and whatnot and working with them, even if they're very, very low functioning. I know Miss Smith is here, but Superior will not even listen to us when they're trying to set up medical consenters. They will just want to hear from the client. And it's sort of the same way when we go just about everywhere else and try to get those. And the department does not help once they get to be adults. And I know Mr. Badke personally, and that still hasn't granted us any special favors along those lines. But I will try to get for the court exactly how that process is supposed to occur and to whom we send those. And having worked for the department for almost 30 years before we went to this new arrangement, it's changed some over the years, but basically there's always been some kind of a program. We've had a lot of name changes for them in their high school years that haven't been helpful. We have several that were born out of state, and then I'm going to have to find out why the department is taking so long on these where we've actually made legitimate requests of them.
Half the time it feels like we send something off, we wait in the mail after we send all of the documents, and then we get a notification weeks and weeks later that they want something else.
Okay, I guess it comes back to that government word. If somebody can find out kind of what the current process is, what they need, and just and can just kind of outline that for Ms. Zavala, that would be great. You know, that here's what we have to have, kind of thing. All right. Other than that, Ms. Zavala, any other concerns for Mary Jane?
Mary Jane's doing really good. She's getting to be really active at her church. And so I've got no concerns about how she's doing, where she is, about the future guardianship. I think that is the right way to go. So all is good with her.
Okay. All right, then I will continue. The department is permanent managing conservator, and I will continue her current. Well, I'm sorry, now she's young adult. We'll just continue. Well, technically she's in extended care. So, all right. So we'll just continue the extended care over her, and then our next hearing is February 13th of 2025. And that's on a 9 o'clock docket.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you all so much.
Judge Anthony should be here for the next hearing.
He is in the waiting room. Anthony, can you hear us okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. We're here on a review hearing. We're conducting this through Zoom and we are live streaming. Ms. Taylor is making our record. Okay, we'll go ahead and take announcements.
Daniel Trout for the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services. Yolanda Novak is my permanency specialist. We're present and ready. And Your Honor, I'd go ahead and make the motion that since the child is here, if we could go off YouTube.
Stacy Zavala on behalf of Anthony. While I anticipate that everything you will hear today about Anthony is very positive, I also join in that motion to go off of YouTube to protect his privacy.
All right, then, since he is present, we will stop the live stream to protect confidentiality and privacy. And